All right.
Oh, here we go. Nope. There it is. Okay, now we're good.
All right. Okay, so I'll call the special meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission order. First item we have is roll call. All our members and alternate are present. We go down to old business workshop. Text amendment.
Home because I can't hear what's going
Okay.
on. And
Okay.
he left the same reason.
Okay.
All right. And who is this person up here?
This Kevin Fiftel is the Planning and Zoning Commission member.
Okay.
Okay.
First item is workshop text amendment pre-application, which we have the cannabis. I don't know if Jeff wanted to make a presentation.
Jeff, are you ready to share your screen?
Yes, I am.
Can you hear us all right? How about that?
Yes, I hear you really well this evening so far.
Excellent. We have new speakers.
Oh, really? Well, so far so good. All right, can everyone see my first slide?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. All right. So first item on the agenda, as was mentioned, is cannabis. So we are almost there. Just a couple things that we wanted to discuss with you tonight. Hopefully that will be a brief discussion, and then we can wrap this one up, which is exciting. As you know, thank you to everyone for filling out the questionnaire for data centers. There was a lot of information collected, a lot of disparate opinions about this topic still. So I imagine the bulk of our conversation this evening will revolve around that. But did want to take a few minutes to address cannabis first. So one slide for cannabis, super easy tonight, I hope. So where we're down to, I think we're in agreement with basically everything. Did want to note that based on our last discussion on cannabis, we have increased the distance allowed between individual cannabis establishments to at least 1,500 feet. It been 1,000 feet in a prior draft. And this would be consistent with the current draft's distance from any school, church, hospital, charitable institution, veterans home, or armed forces barracks, also of at least 1,500 feet. Now all of you, I believe, have hard copies of the maps that staff provided for you that show what those buffers around those uses would look like at 500 feet, 1,000 feet, and 1,500 feet. So based on those maps, we realized that there were some instances where there might be physical proximity as the bird flies, but there are barriers such as highways, railways, navigable bodies of water that would make it impossible to walk from one place to another within that radius. And so based on that, and you'll see on your maps the example of the Kolnaski School, which is located between a railway and a commercial district. So why would we, disallow these uses along that commercial strip when there's a railroad between that roadway and the school? So you will see that exception, that caveat has been.
Jeff.
Yes.
Hi, Sean.
He left. I just-
Not working, plugged in and. Plugged in. Go anywhere.
That's us.
So what do you think?
Check 1, 2, 3. Capture. Check 1, 2, 3. Check, check, check. 1, 2, 3. Yep. All right, think you're back in business. Sorry.
Wait.
You are, he should be able to hear you now.
Said he was in the waiting room.
Oh, okay. I'll like find him.
I don't know. Jeff, can you hear us now?
Yes, I've been able to hear you the whole time, I think.
Oh, we just couldn't hear you. Okay.
Oh,
Okay, I think we're back in business, so.
Okay.
okay. Where did you lose me? Do I need to start over?
No, you don't. Just when you were explaining the Kolnaski school issue.
Okay. So we realized that as an example of this situation, the Kolnaski School is located within 1,500 feet of a commercial area that might otherwise be appropriate for cannabis establishments, but it's separated from that roadway by a railway. And so we figured it'd probably be worthwhile having this caveat that if there is a highway, a railway, or a navigable waterway between one of these uses and a cannabis establishment, that radius would not apply. One other point that we wanted to discuss, this group had gone back and forth on the types of uses that would be that would require this setback from cannabis establishments. The law is very prescriptive on this point, and some of the earlier drafts we thought we could get creative. There's the charitable institution, and is a library a charitable institution? Maybe. Could you argue that a park is a charitable institution? A little iffier. And so we have seen other Connecticut municipalities try to stretch what uses can be within this setback. But at the end of the day, we decided to be conservative and stick with the letter of the law. So again, those uses that are in the law are schools, churches, hospitals, charitable institutions, and I don't have the exact phrasing on these slides, but basically veterans' homes and armed forces barracks or airfields. My thought is that you might want to just keep this to schools, churches, and hospitals because those are very well defined in your use table and are very easy to map and understand. Charitable institutions are a little more nebulous. You may have difficulty enforcing that over time. And then likewise for veterans homes and armed forces and such. Yeah, I don't know if it's what the social value would be And it might be a little difficult to enforce because that does not exactly align with uses in your use table. So those are the things to consider this evening. Finalizing those distances and make sure you're okay with the caveat about highways, rails, and navigable waters. And if you're comfortable with which uses you're comfortable including in that caveat.
Richard.
Does anyone?
Just go. Yeah,
Don't want to go around the table.
okay, well, if we're gonna limit the list, I would definitely want to see libraries in there, if we can do that. Did
So
have a
again-
thing about,
I'll back up and say it is these 5 things that the Connecticut law specifically allows municipalities to include. So what we're recommending is that we stick with those. I think if you really wanted libraries, like we could maybe say, yeah, library is a charitable institution. And like, I think that can pass the straight face test. But too much beyond the strict letter of the law we're trying to avoid. I just wanted to add that before you continue. Thank you.
I wasn't gonna push charitable institution because that is so wide open.
Right.
But library is not.
But the actual statute says charitable institution without a definition. So we've reviewed this with the town attorney and he recommends sticking with what the statute allows rather than expanding it to playgrounds or things that are not mentioned in the statute.
Well, it sounds like playgrounds, as much as we'd like to, we can't because the statute doesn't have that.
Exactly. But if you look at your map as well and look at, the areas where the libraries are, it's not a lot of commercial area where a cannabis shop could go anyway.
It was a bit there. It's always like,
For the one down here on 117,
yeah,
that's,
I would like to, and that's the one I'd be targeting,
Yeah.
just to get things away from there.
Yeah.
So there couldn't actually be a repeat of the one that's in front of the school, that would take care of it. So if we could maybe if that's a clarification to what the charitable ones we're talking about, then I'd be good with that, but I want to see library. I do have a question about the Armed Forces Barracks. Is that really the way it's defined? And I just question that because I just wonder about that because these places will be 100% off limits to sailors.
I
And so,
think it's
Well,
exactly the term. But it is, yeah, it's definitely a separation distance from some sort of armed forces.
Yeah, I believe the exact terminology is armed forces, barracks, and airfields.
Thank you.
airfields.
Coast Guard.
Well, that's kind of a weird thing. That's why. So if it's Armed Forces Barracks now, then does it go back to the property that the barracks are on? Because that takes care of it then. And if it's the property that the barracks are on, then we're good. So that if in fact if our base, like a lot of bases, didn't have any barracks, then it wouldn't apply. Ours does. We have barracks. So this would in fact put 1,500-foot radius around the entire base, which would be appropriate. I'm sure the CO would love that.
Anything else? Huh?
And no, I think the idea of including it, the caveat for the barrier being the railroad tracks, that makes perfect sense. Do we need to say, you say highway? Does it need to say limited access highway just because we kind of use the term here loosely?
Limited
Certainly,
access,
we can say limited access highway.
We're talking about. That's it for me.
Mike, you,
Thank you. So the Paquonic River, that's navigable to Route 1, or is it navigable north of that
it's not negligible.
No, it's not.
It's not.
at all?
No, you can't get a cut.
No, oh, yeah, no, I went there today and I looked at it and it was high tide. There was about a foot
Oh,
under
the
the-
aquatic, you on the west side of Bluff Point?
all the way up to Route 1 where the barn and the Baptist church, I guess it's the Baptist church up there.
It's also going like to,
Yeah, but I don't know that that's.
Why does it apply?
no.
Route 1 goes across it, so that's that punches a hole.
No, well, I guess it,
That's
if,
a reservoir. It's-
Right.
I guess I just wonder how
You
that,
can Sail up there, you can
You
take a
can't.
boat up there.
But it's still a barrier.
what's called, I mean, navigable. Does that mean-
Naming.
I mean, I thought that was like just anything that a.
Right.
It would be on a chart where you can use. I mean,
Maybe
it's not plotted on a chart. I don't think.
the term navigable doesn't belong there. That's the-
Yeah, because you can get in here, right? You go all the way up. to-
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. If
Although
that's
there's
considered-
some other stuff along Bluff Point. You have to go through, but.
It's so shoal. I don't know.
We could simply say permanent body of water, assuming no one's going to ford a river to get to
Oh, it's-
where cannabis.
Yes.
is.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the area that I was looking, I mean, I was just driving by it, going to the library and,
From the Coast Guard.
so when you go over, when you turn right off of South Road onto Route 1, and then the Baptist church is on your left, which would have a radius around it. And then you cross over the river. And I guess I wonder how those circles are. If the Paquonic River was navigable, how would that affect
Well,
radius?
I don't think we care whether it's navigable. It's just whether you can have pedestrian access.
Yeah, nobody.
Yeah,
maybe
across it.
Maybe
That's
the
fine.
exclusion should include
Yeah.
something that prohibits pedestrian access.
I guess that's where I,
But where it is a barrier, what we're talking about, is
Yeah.
a barrier. And if there's a road across it, then there's no barrier.
There is no barrier.
that's
That's right.
that's actually the same situation on Paquonic Road. I mean, you can walk under the railroad bridge, right? It's not
Mm.
not really a barrier
It's
that's
true.
continuous.
Yeah, but it's where it's pedestrian access.
It's pedestrian access.
I
So maybe it needs to be defined where no pedestrian access.
And then use these examples.
That's right.
Sure, we can
Just say
certainly
waterways,
make that adjustment.
railroads, limited access highway.
Right.
Hmm. That's what the objective is.
No, I understand. It's just that
How do
you
you
can
turn?
walk from
Make-
Kolnaski to Route 1. It's pedestrian. It's easy to walk there.
How?
Paquonic
Oh.
Road. You go underneath the railroad. The road goes underneath the railroad track.
Well,
Yeah, but that's,
but that's fine.
that's.
We don't have a problem with that. You can get there. But then it's a long, long way around.
Yeah, I mean, it's 1,500 feet.
It's 1,500 feet.
Yeah, and it's drawing the radius around it. It looks like. doesn't it?
Yeah, but the radius would stop
At the
at
railroad.
the
track.
railroad. track.
That's the idea.
That's what we're
You
trying.
chop the radius of the railroad tracks.
Mhm.
So if you want to walk, give it the,
The little corridor along Route 1 would be able to have cannabis and would not be.
I mean, I'm not trying to make it
It's
difficult. I
direct,
just,
it's direct access
Well, even if you go,
from the property to,
isn't that 150?
oh, because you have to walk out around?
yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. I mean, I just look at these radiuses and then it doesn't say how you get there.
Right.
It's just,
oh, no, but we want to
Motion.
make it accessible. We want to cut that off.
so these maps need to be sort of adjusted
That would
for
be
that,
best.
for those things.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
then what
that'd
do you think about the Paquonic River? Is that one there? Because I mean, I just like look at this use as probably something that the barn might be interested.
So is the barn? I don't
That's
have,
within that's within all of them.
is it within 1,500 feet of the church?
Okay.
So, right, so would you consider the Paquonic River there being a barrier for this section?
Not with regard to that, because Route 1
Because you
is
can walk
an
across.
access.
So 1,500 foot would preclude the barn
Yes.
from becoming a cannabis retail facility.
Yes.
And that's good. I just, okay,
And if we just
Decide that 1,500 feet is that another question that we have?
Yes,
I think, yeah, it is, it is. That's why you see 1,500, 1,000 and 500 on the maps, so you can get an idea of what.
And then when we said schools, because I went back and watched our August meeting again and listened to it, but I know that there was some question about, these are public or both public and private?
in
Public
this,
and
in this
private.
draft it is public and private. It is as defined in your use table. which includes public and private schools as a single use.
Okay, and then I know that there's a school in, and I don't know what, that it's TVCCA in Ring Drive area, right in the middle of it.
They have a facility there, yeah,
That's
it's like
a,
a daycare thing.
it looked like it was some sort of, is that considered a
I
school?
know there's a daycare there. I don't know whether there's a school.
Okay.
Not a
Daycare does
school.
not count. Daycare does not count. And
Okay,
as we
all right.
discussed at our last meeting, like trade schools or, art schools or, dance schools or whatever, like that also does not count. And your definitions in your use table are very clear about that.
It said elementary and or those ages, right?
Well, it would be an accredited school. Colleges.
I mean, I feel like we need to have these sort of
Well,
a clear understanding of what each one of these things are.
Well, you do. That's what those maps are.
Yeah,
It'd be helpful to have a few more words on this.
like what a school, okay. And then the other thing was the church, which I kind of brought up before, because I know that they can move around more frequently. And I used the example before of the Steadfast Baptist Church, which was next, right across from Big Y, but right in that little shopping area there for a while, and then they've moved. But you can have them in a storefront. So I don't know about that, but I'm willing to be, listen. Well, I'm just,
I would say that anything that's going before they moved is already grandfathered in, so it doesn't
Exactly.
chase anyone away. As the church showed up, it would preclude a new cannabis one showing up too close to that unit. But anyone that was already there, doesn't
yeah,
matter.
it just seems like this
Exactly.
in and out stuff kind of makes it confusing. That's it. I'm probably more comfortable. Seems like the 1,500 feet is really, and what Hal said about the military barracks, I would be in favor of that, I think. But maybe the 1,000 feet, I would probably be more inclined to, it just seems like there's not a whole lot left on this map with the 1,500 feet when I look at it.
Actually, that's what I was looking at, the 1,500 feet. As soon as you do the barrier in there, it looks like there's still plenty of space to put these in.
Hmm.
Up in the, around Walmart area and up in that area and all along the normal commercial strip. There's plenty of spaces, so
Yeah.
I don't think it precludes.
Right.
All right.
It's,
I would like to see that map adjusted. However, I mean, obviously, we're gonna get that, right? The one that adjusts for the,
Oh, to show where the cutoff would be, for example,
these barriers are there.
like to stop the barrier.
I think that was my question about the Quantic River, because like it's a circle, right? And then the church is sort of in the middle of it. And then do you make a piece of pie take out of it? Or how do you draw those lines? I just was curious as to how that works. Like runs right up the middle of Route 1. Kind of a thing. Anyway, that's it for me.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what.
So,
It emanates,
as the crow flies.
Yeah, but
as it grows, flies,
as the, yeah, straight line, regardless of what the road's doing, like the road could change or something. Okay, I think that's our only navigable water, isn't it?
navigable or otherwise, it's a barrier.
I don't know that it's navigable, but
Yeah. I don't
it's a
like it.
barrier, so that's why I think you
It's a
need the
barrier.
word pedestrian access.
Right.
I don't like the
You can't
idea of
put
using
stepping
the
stones.
navigable type
No,
thing, because it
Because I don't
changes.
think it would
too.
qualify.
It doesn't,
Yeah.
it's just that it's a barrier.
Hmm.
If it ceases to be a barrier,
I don't think a kayak. means it's navigable.
they're always going to take a kayak across the river to try to get.
No, I don't think,
We-
no, I mean, I don't think that's the definition.
It's like Birch Plain Creek. You only go so far in a
To
car.
me, it would be a larger boat.
And to play devil's advocate on it, if in fact we get a train station
Yep.
that accesses both sides of the
Right.
track in downtown Groton, that will change this picture, then there will be access from Kolnaski to downtown. But that's something we would evaluate at that time.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
So it's,
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful just to put the names of the roads or the railroad station and stuff on here.
No.
Just, when you keep looking at such a busy map.
Right.
Well, if I'm
95
jumping
is-
around, I know which one's which, but I have to think about it. This is Gold Star and all that, but it'd be nice to have just a couple words in for reference. I like the 1500 idea. I mean, I agree. I don't think it takes away that much. Let's see what else. Yeah, otherwise I'm okay.
It's- Steve,
I looked real quick at the definition for schools, and it looks like that's pretty covered, based on what we have in our regs. So I'm not concerned with that. What I am concerned about is, the exceptions that were given, that's state statutes you mentioned. But, a playground for kids,
It's a tough one.
daycare center, things that are
Law does not
kid-oriented.
authorize you to do that.
Say again?
I said the law does not authorize you to do that. We could try and
Oh,
see
we
if
can do
anyone
whatever we
complains.
want. I think we can do whatever we want. I mean, they can challenge us, but I mean, I don't think anybody's gonna stand up and say, no, I mean, a charitable institution is a heck of a lot more important to protect than a playground for kids.
I don't think that's going to be the test. The test will be, does the statute authorize you to do it? Yeah,
I don't know about daycare, because daycare parents take their kids to daycare and retrieve them from daycare, the little kid, little.
Yeah.
Playground, that gives me heartburn, but I guess we can't do anything about
Go on record as
Yeah,
getting
the little
heartburn.
kids are
Yeah.
little kids will be super.
it. Yeah, yeah, that's not. the
They're
issue.
not,
The
it's the
playground,
ones that are on their.
kids walk to the playground, hopefully.
Yeah.
That's a big hole in the statute then.
What's the concern? Is that
Yeah,
they
but they'll
see it,
walk by
or
a
that they
liquor
go and
store.
Get it or
It's
something?
part of their world. It's
Oh,
gonna-
okay. All right.
Yeah.
The clientele,
Oh,
potential. All right, no, I have no other.
they'll be on their phone. So
I agree with the setbacks and I agree with the caveats.
Kevin, do you have any comment on this?
So the distance between cannabis is good at 1,500 feet. The only question I had is back to staff. Did our enforcement officer look at this, the difference between what the state statute is versus what we have in our table at the bottom of schools, churches and hospitals? And does he believe it's enforceable?
yeah, it's definitely enforceable. And when you actually get to the point of submitting an application, we'll get that in writing, as well as the review from the town attorney.
Okay, then I have no other further questions. Thank you.
I'd like to stick to what the state statute says, because eventually there'll be court cases that will define
Yeah.
maybe in more detail. I think we're safer with doing that,
Okay,
because some of these areas could be fuzzy,
yeah,
but they'll have court cases, maybe not here, but somewhere else. I think.
and that list may expand, then we can
Yeah.
expand.
Or if it shrinks it or.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Just the little verbiage, is church the word that is used in the state statute? Because there's like
Oh, yeah.
lots of different
It doesn't
signs
count.
that church isn't a temple and it isn't a
Well,
mosque.
synagogues don't count.
Yeah.
Mosques
Oh,
don't
yeah,
count.
no,
A meeting house doesn't count.
A meeting house, yeah, Quakers
I
can't.
mean, is that the word?
Isn't it a
I-
religious institution?
I don't have it at my fingertips, but we are using whatever,
We ought to be equal to whatever the state.
we're
statute
using
is,
what's
and that
in
may-
your use table that corresponds with what's in the statute.
And there may be court cases that would define
I
what.
don't remember, Jeff, if it's places of worship or churches, but we'll check
Yeah,
on
I
that.
think it's places of worship, and I put churches as a shorthand for this slide.
Places of worship.
That's what we call it.
Is a bit
But it's
different.
whatever is, however it is worded in your use table is how it's worded.
You should use the exact
That'd be great.
terms,
Right.
then you can stay out of trouble.
Can't say church, that's not acceptable.
Yeah,
Not for this.
Yeah, so again, what's in the draft is what's in your use table.
Exactly.
We've used the exact language in the draft.
And to answer your question, Michael, it's church or other place of worship.
Yeah, no, I saw that there, but then I was looking at this.
This is shorthand for.
Oh,
That's all.
okay, I
Yeah, just like-
apologize.
Couldn't fit everything on the slide and make it all legible, but yes.
Okay.
The exact
That's
language.
fine. I had seen that, so that's fine.
Next item, Jeff.
Okay. Super. Well, moving on to data centers. So again, thank
Oh,
you,
wait.
everyone. What?
Well, I had some concerns with some of these areas for in your use table.
I'm sorry, which topic are we talking about, Jeff?
Cannabis.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we're back to- okay.
If we go down the uses, the first area on that you have on retailer, you have the IM district. Do we really want to have something in the district of IM or just limit it to commercial uses or areas?
That's up to you guys. Again, we have gone through all the districts. That was one of the first conversations that you ever had about cannabis. Going through and having that conversation about all the various types of cannabis uses and where you think they would be allowed. That was the consensus of the group. And, you know, certainly if you want to revisit that, you can.
Doesn't that sort of match having breweries and things like that in industrial? Which we don't want.
Well, yeah, but a brewery means you're making something. A retail area, you're selling something only. They're not manufacturing.
I'm just wondering what the harm is.
Well, no.
What about a grow facility?
You mean you want to grow and sell?
Yeah.
Okay, then I would say, yeah.
Maybe that's something that the market would drive.
Yeah. Yeah,
He's going to want to have a.
okay. No, I could see that.
Yeah.
Maybe it makes sense.
Well,
And in your micro,
well, wait, before you leave that one. So you're saying commercial and not the MTC?
MTC is mixed,
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, but it's mixed use, right?
which
Yeah.
is commercial.
Yeah, you'll
Yeah,
have
it
some
is
commercial in there,
Oh, no, I didn't.
but I am.
I mean, where you're allowed to have, commercial as part of
Right.
it.
But you wouldn't have it in an IM. Sounds kind of crazy to have it in the IM first.
No, but I think what Hal's saying is you could have somebody manufacturing or making things and selling them.
Selling
Yeah.
both.
Right.
Yeah, we do that.
Kind of be like an accessory use.
Do
It's more of an
we-
accessory use, yeah.
Well, we have micro cultivator in IM.
And retail in the IM. Just
Yeah.
straight
Yeah,
retail.
well, I mean,
No, I was looking
supply
for
it there.
Yeah,
manufacturer.
but
That's the only thing.
they could be also selling.
Yeah, manufacturer, small scales in the IM,
Yeah,
Will be.
large scales in the IM. So that would give the ability to sell,
selling, yeah.
Yep. make.
So I guess that makes sense.
Just let it go.
And on the micro cultivator, should we be allowing that in the IG as we do for a regular size count? Does it make a difference? I would think.
I think so, but I was wondering why it was in the RU.
What, the small area?
Yeah, micro cultivator.
You got an,
It says all of a sudden we're in residential.
that's rural.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's a
that micro
large-
cultivator, there was a conversation you had a year ago, October, and so the initial list of uses that I got said, hey, we're considering allowing micro cultivation in the RU. We had this conversation,
makes-
general consensus was, I think we're okay with that. But again, if you're not okay
Yeah.
with that, we can change it.
No, I don't disagree, but I still,
But it
it's
has
okay for me to
tradition.
question.
Of course,
No,
yeah,
I
that's what I'm
think
saying. Reminding everyone of the history that we didn't just
think
put it
we
in there
should.
for fun.
No,
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I'm just starting afresh and looking at this.
I think that's what we should be doing now, rather than
Yeah.
waiting till later and then shooting it down.
Yeah,
If it's rural.
Because once you see it all together in writing, it's a lot different than just talking about it in general.
My question, who's gonna police all this? Having it all in these zones and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff going on here.
I told him a cannabis zoning.
Yeah, maybe.
And he goes out and samples.
Just bring a sniffing dog out there. They'll find it.
CZO, right?
That's a
So-
perfectly valid question. If people are not comfortable having micro cultivators in the RU, we can strike that. That's your decision.
So we're putting that in residential. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's a rural.
I know it's
so
rural,
it
but
means it's a large.
it's 2
area.
acres.
But it's, just, it backs up to a lot of
That's true.
stuff.
What's the definition of micro? How micro is micro?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
8,000 and 10,000 square feet of gross space. Floor area.
See, that's pretty big in 2 acres.
So maybe not, maybe knock it out.
That's why I just, maybe leave that one. out here. Okay, I got one person. agreeing with me.
I got no problem in striking RU.
Okay.
Oh, well, what, the only, I'm gonna ask,
Yeah, but somebody could have a small one. if you
yeah,
could.
that's like Whittle's
It's
Farm
Conditional.
or
It's
something like
conditional.
that. He might want to
Well,
grow.
then we should change the definition for micro.
Hmm?
Make
You
micro
can't
really
change the
micro.
definition for micro. That is set in state law.
State. Okay, then I don't like it in the RU.
The only one that I would say is
But it's
Whittle's is
conditional.
up there.
It's conditional.
There's a lot of other things up in the RU.
Yeah, but it's conditional, so you.
So maybe that's the trick. It's the conditional takes care of it because we would,
So we have to,
if they did their whittles.
Oh,
why
okay.
would we care?
All right,
It's
I
true.
see that. So it is, it's conditional.
Conditional use.
Okay.
Yeah, any of those, remember, any of those non-residential uses in the RU are conditional.
Put it.
yep,
Okay.
So is the consensus you're cool with this, or is the consensus to remove it?
I'm okay with
Let's
it
leave.
because it's conditional.
Leave it.
Leave it in.
leave it in.
Leave it in.
That's
Leave it,
our consensus.
But
Yep.
should we allow it in IG?
Don't see the harm.
Making and selling.
No,
Full service.
no, the small one could be an IG.
Yeah, I would say the IG, in the IG, I see the golf course, the old, that used to be potato fields, it might be something that, in fact, I think it's right now he's using it as farm. Or he was for a while, horses in there,
Oh, really?
where the Birch Plain Creek,
Yeah.
and that's,
Not a bad place.
quite a big spot. So maybe the IG is,
But isn't it done usually indoors most of the?
I don't know.
Cultivation.
no, I don't know.
Yeah.
Indoors. I
Yeah.
think it would be
Right.
indoors.
Because of the winter and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. You want to do it indoors.
They'll have
It doesn't
greenhouses,
have
so-
to be, but it is almost exclusively grown indoors in the Northeast.
Especially
Yeah,
small.
that's part of it. I would think so. And then you have to get a building, so it's limited.
That's right.
And then there's setback.
Mhm.
The whole 9 yards. So it's kind of self-limiting.
So what do you think about IG? Good?
Okay.
Three IGs.
Thanks,
Jeff
IG.
suggested it. That's 4.
So we
They
go to-
vote.
That's for keeping.
Yeah, keep
That's
it.
for
Leave it in
Yeah.
because
Okay.
the conditions take it. Yeah. Onward?
Okay, add IG to cannabis micro cultivator. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just writing that down. All right, super.
And on these conditions, can we streamline some of those words, I think, in section 5(1)(15)(a)? So verbose, I think it's gonna lead to confusion, and some of those things that we just talked about will have to change, I think. Agree with the state statute. I don't think we need all that text.
It's a lot.
Hmm?
It's a lot.
Well, 10 people will concentrate on the wrong thing and miss what's intended. I believe in KISS.
That's a lot of words.
Hmm.
That is a lot of words.
Yes, it's two verbose.
I'll see what I can do.
Keep it simple. That's what kids say. Right?
Anything else on cannabis? All right, that gives us about 45 minutes for data centers. Which again, I expect, given your responses, we're gonna have a lot of conversation tonight. So I want to make sure we have a lot of time for that one.
I think we really ought to understand what we want to do. What's the objective of controlling the data center? Because it probably depends on size. I'm really concerned, I believe, over these large ones that use an awful lot of power, water, make a lot of noise. The small ones, if they be more common, probably don't amount to much at all from impact on surrounding areas or on the environment.
So start looking at the small ones again.
Well, but I don't know how you define them. How do you define it?
Well, there was an interesting comment from you, Kevin, I think, on your answer sheet here, now that we have everybody's names on the sheet. But it was under that 1A. The rise of containerized data centers pushes that square foot number lower. And I think maybe you meant to say 1,000 square feet there, but maybe
I did.
not. Then-
No, I think I did.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, if that was wrong.
No, that's okay. I just want to
Yeah.
make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, because I got worried about the 100 square
Yeah.
foot. I said, that's a 10 by 10 foot room,
But that would still,
but that may
and
be a
that's
lot
lower.
of data centers.
Yeah, no, it might be.
Yeah.
So there were lots
Yeah,
of
but that
questions
may,
about where the 5,000 square foot came from. You know, to the extent that there are quote unquote industry standards and looking at other communities, actually 10,000 square feet is what we're seeing most often for the dividing line between data centers as a primary use and data centers as an accessory use. 10,000 square feet seem to be too large for your tastes. And everything else that we've been discussing so far was 5,000 feet, which again, based on what I've seen in other communities, is conservative. However, I would tend to agree with folks who are interested in pushing this down to 1,000 square feet, at least for the standards that you're trying to apply. And again, at least until you have a better sense of what these things, what the impacts are going to be on the community. So I have no problem and actually would advocate for reducing that number from 5,000 to 1,000. We also have to talk about where that line is between accessory and a standalone. You know, I don't think, given what I understand about the industry, no one is going to come in and propose a standalone 2,000 square foot data center. It's not profitable, it's not efficient. It is almost certainly not going to happen, but it could be an accessory to an existing business. And as a reminder, one of the directions we got at the beginning of this was we don't want to preclude existing businesses from having an accessory data center on site. One of the things that you had all brought up, maybe we need an absolute square footage cap, and that is true for the accessory versus a standalone. You know, right now we're just letting the underlying building coverage, lot coverage, manage that, but we could certainly put an absolute cap on any of these things. Another thing I want to point out, I heard a lot through your responses, was the bigger these are, the louder they're going to get. And I don't know that that's necessarily true, or at least it's not a direct correlation. That depends on a lot of other things. And so I think, you know, having noise regulations that you are comfortable with is how you deal with that rather than trying to let size manage noise. Because again, I don't believe that there is a direct correlation between those two things. So I think some of my biggest takeaways for you to determine tonight is where you are comfortable with the size of these things triggering all of the standards. And for a lot of you, it sounds like even for the accessory data centers, you want all the standards to apply. So I want to confirm that. We have to tackle this issue of noise. And I want to reiterate that I think it is a misconception that data centers are noisier than other industrial uses. In fact, I think there are plenty of other industrial uses, particularly if you are manufacturing things, if you are pounding metal, that are going to be far louder than a data center on average. So if you are uncomfortable with your noise regulations, I want to tackle that for all industrial uses or all uses, period, as opposed to coming up with something specific for data centers when I think there are other uses that could potentially be as loud or louder. And then finally, I do want to make sure that we talk more. I know there was uncertainty about the issue about utilities, water use, energy use, security plans, and safety plans, hazard mitigation plans. I want to make sure that, much like when we're talking about short-term rentals, a lot of those issues, zoning is not the best way to deal with them. You can ensure that they are dealt with, but zoning is not the place for those details. So one thing I've discussed with Deb, I think using this moratorium to get a handle not just on the land use implications, but on the enforcement and management implications is going to be critical. And so as soon as you have something, a draft that you're generally comfortable with, I want to make sure the town is running that by your police, your fire, the local utility companies, and I want to hear from them. What do you need to feel comfortable with these things? Because really at the end of the day, it's the utility company that should be saying, wow, this amount of water use is not sustainable. It's going to be a negative impact on our system. And I want that coming from the utility and not from zoning, just because this is a clunky tool to deal with that. So before we open up the conversation, I just wanted to say, just reading through your comments, those are the major things that came to my mind. And I don't want us to go down rabbit holes on specifics about those things, because I really think that, zoning can say, yeah, you've got to have an agreement with the town. And remember, all of these data centers, if you allow them to come into town, are going to have an agreement with the municipality. And I think you can say there are certain performance standards here. Like if you are going to have an agreement with the town, you have to hit all these things. But we're not going to say in zoning what that's going to be, with the exception of noise. If you want to have that conversation and have a stricter noise ordinance that applies across the board for other uses, I think there is a place to do that within zoning. So that's my little soapbox for before we open this up.
Well, there's no town agreement with a data center except for those that are large by the state statute. But most of the data centers are going to be smaller than that.
That's right. And I
And
think,
they wouldn't fall under those rules anyway. I think those rules are set up for these mega data centers.
a lot of them.
But you have firms like Electric Boat used to have association with CSC up in Norwich, and they did all their computing service, and they had a data center within their office area.
Any
And
idea
that's
how
where we
many-
have to draw the
No,
line.
that-
We have to figure out
I
where
was
we're
trying to,
comfortable with
last night,
accessory.
I was asking around if somebody might know, but because we got a retirees meeting, but nobody was familiar with it.
Well,
I used to go up there, but only to deal with the programming side of things. But I don't think that type of data center, even though process is a lot of work, and I don't know how much was farmed out from there to somewhere else. It could have been. Doesn't take up a lot of
I
space,
don't think so.
and it's not noisy, and it doesn't use up a lot of power.
And just for comparison, so this room is somewhere around 1,500. I just kind of roughly did it. So 1,000 would be 2/3 of this space.
Yeah,
It's not
that's
really-
still, I mean, putting a
lot
lot of computers in this space is a lot of computing power.
It's huge.
Oh,
Mhm.
but still, I feel like we really, for me, it'd be very helpful to visit a 1,000 square type facility. To look at something that's an accessory, that maybe is a 5,000 or whatever, some other size. Just, I mean, because it's been years, I know we had the different support things too, that will be offsite, but what's it like now? I mean, I just don't have a handle for that. There's so much missing information. And Jeff, I know you like to be on your soapbox, but I think for zoning, it's good to come into these things with a fresh look. And especially in an area that's so technically difficult, at least for me, and I don't have the experience like that Kevin does or other industry leaders would have, but really want to understand it. And for example, noise, there's recordings on, you can get what a data center sounds like, and it is horrible.
Yeah,
So
and
I-
it's 24/7.
And it's 24/7,
Yeah.
exactly.
Jeff, you said that, there's a lot of
Sorry.
industrial things that are louder, and I agree, but not 24/7.
Sure.
These guys shut down. They don't work all night.
And it's a
That's
constant,
right,
and it's a
yeah.
constant noise
That's
level.
right.
too.
That's right.
And then that's not even talking about backup power, because you fire up a big diesel. I know what those sound like.
I think our noise regulations here are sorely lacking generally. So
Right.
I think. of
And I
all the
don't
kind of-
disagree.
Some kind of the normal industrial noise that we're accustomed to. You said pounding metal, that would be one. Frankly, if it's inside of a building, you don't hear it that much. One of the nastiest is actually the exhaust systems for woodworking, because they use these big turbines that are usually outside, so they dump this stuff, and they're horrific. I mean, if there was a regulation, it would be no problem for them to quiet them down. But nobody's ever asked them to. So.
Right. So that's
maybe
why
it
my
wouldn't hurt.
suggestion is not to not deal with the noise, but if we're gonna deal with noise, let's deal with it across the board, because I think it's a bigger issue than data centers.
That was my comment
I agree.
with the noise, was that our regulations are insufficient.
Well, they don't have a noise. It's really just a thing.
No, and that would
It's always
probably
been a
make the most
problem.
sense.
Well, they have a very bad one.
It was a problem with Whittles, I mean, it really was. Noise was huge. So-
Yeah,
So,
because it was at
Because it
times,
was a state level. Everything was always, oh, you go to the state standard. And if you could hear the state standard, nobody want to live next to that. Right?
yeah,
It's terrible.
well, that's,
Right, the property line, oh, it could be that.
but that's why you have large industry zone for areas that are not adjacent to
Oh,
residential.
that's right.
But that's not what we have.
That's right.
Let's
No,
go
but
there
that's
for a
what I
second.
think.
Let's ask one question first, and this may eliminate some of the other questions. So one of the issues was, do you allow this in the IM and the IG, or just the IG? And that was one thing where, I mean, there wasn't full consensus, but the general consensus was, let's limit this to the IG. So if that's the case, if we are limiting this to the IG, does that change your concerns, or does it change the framework that we're dealing with?
I would think it would change the noise. I think it would change the noise concern.
Right, and but there again, it depends where it is in the IG, what the setbacks are, what the noise itself is like, because. I mean, I agree, obviously, it's in right, I put it in writing, but I think IG is the appropriate place to consider these, certainly not the other IM. That doesn't make sense to me at all.
But we're talking large,
Right,
large-
large, but even
large.
so, I think okay, is this gonna carry out to the RS12 neighborhood there? On that one hand, is it gonna go out to the RU? I mean, these are just questions because they're close. I don't have.
you still have a sound.
you can have a.
Wow.
Sound ordinance.
You,
that-
it
But we
doesn't,
need that, yeah,
We still need it.
we do. No, I think we should do that.
I mean, there has to be some, though, and I agree with what Sue was saying, is that there's, like, in the IG, there are two areas in particular that would concern me, that RS12, which it kind of wraps around, and then the other one is up on Industrial Drive, which right now Amtrak is up there, but I mean, that is like 50 feet from Ivy Court and Knoxville, whatever, that whole neighborhood, you know, it's right across the street. People park on Industrial Drive.
So I guess the answer is, no, it wouldn't alleviate our concern. Like, permissible, but you still have still have to have the regulation.
But it produces affordable housing.
Well, it's already affordable in those, you know, yeah, yeah, that neighborhood is actually improving.
I don't understand the desire, by the way, the reason that IM was wanted was because there was nothing about our IG area that was enticing to the data center people.
Right.
So I just understand the backlash that we're talking.
I understand that, but there's nothing that was exciting about it being the IM to the residents.
No, but if in fact, that's one of those, as I say, trying to, if you shave enough corners off the square peg, can you get into the round hole? If in fact, we just can say, hey, we've got a regulation that means it'll be no noisier than the highway ever. And then what do you care about the noise?
Because it's a different noise. And we
No,
need-
but
We need to address the fact that it's.
well, then we would address that noise. We would say, you must, because what I'm suggesting is that they prove before powering it up, before it goes online, before it's permitted, that the noise is acceptable.
You have to do that for it's in design. I
But
mean,
how
you
do
just
they-
can't get down the road on this. Wait, I mean, really have to.
Well,
This is something I wrote twice, that if you have two identical noise sources, the noise is actually loud.
yes,
They add together and they come up with an. so
absolutely. It's not double, but it is louder. Right.
It's, you know, but it's appreciably louder.
And it's 24/7,
So,
because the highway doesn't
you know,
shut
if
down.
you say it's no noisier than the highway, it will be when the two noises are together.
It will add to the.
Yeah.
Well,
it's-
then it goes
Yeah.
back to, it becomes like traffic.
Well,
If you add, no, I'm saying is, what I'm saying for traffic is the load of traffic. Okay, I put a facility here, it's going to add 1,000 cars. I put another facility in there, it'll be another 1,000 cars. Okay, you can't put the second facility because we can't handle 2,000 cars is what we're saying. In this case, we're going to be up to 70 dB. By another thing, doing the exact same thing, I'll be up to 80 dB. Sorry, you can't put the other facility there because that'll be over the capacity. of the
yeah,
airport.
so as long as we word it that way
Correct,
and say that the additive noise
total,
will not exceed that of the original highway.
correct.
That, yeah,
Well,
But
that
still,
means
it's a
you can't
different
add any
noise.
sign.
what's that?
Then you're not allowing any more.
Any additional noise that would create a peak that's higher than the existing noise. right?
Well, it's gonna be ambient. noise.
Right.
You want ambient,
Yeah, and but I meant, that's a saying, I mean, if you have lower
but
noise.
no matter what you put in there, it's gonna increase the ambient noise.
No.
That's not true, actually.
40 dB source or 50 dB source, and you already have a 70, it won't go higher than 70.
Well, it's additive.
What?
That doesn't, well, that,
Two identical noises will
Yeah.
raise it, but I don't think a 40 would
Well,
increase it 70.
but the frequency is important.
well, that's a different story. Don't
It's not
conflate
just
the two.
OD, it's
Yeah.
more.
That's
more
another
complex.
discussion.
Yeah,
No, I mean,
I
it's
have
more
more
complex.
issues with the IM area than just the noise. There's other issues as well,
Right.
and you might be able to say that you can get the noise down to 0, but then there's other issues up there too that I just don't feel as if this is a light industry.
No,
Simple as that.
If it were 10,000 square feet, would it be okay?
yeah, but it's how
Well,
big it is.
Yeah,
That's
that's,
it.
I mean, you can make.
yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, the thing is that I look at even our IG district and I see what is, like, we call that IG, but really what you see developing in our IG is Leonard Drive. And that kind of is what I think of as a lighter industry
I call that
around,
light industry.
you know, and so like we can call it whatever we want, but what's happening there is light industry and it's very successful. You know, it's a terrific attribute to the airport.
Oh, yeah.
And those kinds of things. So, you know, I just, and well, that's it.
The airport has one noise.
Well, but it's hard to bring in heavy industry.
I don't think you.
I worked in heavy industry for many, many decades. And that's why I was like that Tilcon plant there. That's a tough business, you know,
Yeah.
bringing,
No, and if-
bringing something new.
Groton is trying to attract
Yeah, it's not-
business. I think that the
I'm not
IM is
trying to
really
attract IM.
ideal kind of situation. I mean, I shouldn't say, I would say the light industry is a lot easier pull than trying to get, you know, I don't know what, something
Well, quite honestly, I don't know if we actually have a place in town
big.
other than where the IM is for a heavy industry, because that's the only
We
place
really
where you
don't
get a
have-
truck through town.
And I
Oh, yeah.
That's the only place.
I don't think that it's a heavy industry area.
I don't think you could support.
Giving the,
Hmm?
you know,
Well, yeah, I don't think that, it turns out, as you mentioned, our IG isn't very IG and the IM is less. So it's something we would like to do and the town
Yeah.
doesn't provide for it. We just don't have.
well, I mean, it's what and Groton, the big Groton does have an industrial area, you
It
know,
does.
and, I mean, if you wanted to pick a place to put this, maybe it's on the old Pfizer facility, but we're not doing that. But I mean, it could benefit Groton, but I'm just, you know, I don't know. I mean, it's not like, I don't feel like I need to shoehorn this in either. It's something that if it fits, it fits, it has to fit, and it's got to fit on a lot of multiple different levels, noise, you know, a lot of other,
Resources.
yeah, you know, just how it fits in there. I mean, if you think that you can make the sound work, then you know, it's just,
To me,
there's a lot of other things that,
Well, it is, but I'd say we kind of hit them one at a time.
Yeah.
If the sound, we're going to define the sound as permissible. And if in fact they come back and says, well, we can't do that, the answer is, well, then you can't do it.
Yeah.
That makes it something to build.
Mhm.
I really
And if
think
they,
we need a sound engineer or some.
they would have a sound engineer. Acoustic engineering is a big thing. It's a thing.
No, but I mean, we
I mean,
really
we
need
need
something like
somebody-
that to
think
develop criteria. If we want to revise.
Correct, but I can't believe that the information isn't there.
Oh, I'm sure it is, but I'm just saying we do need help.
Because even if we come up with a limitation that's undoable, that just means we just prohibited it accidentally. But we come up with something, we'll find it.
I think we need to do that regardless
Yeah.
Correct.
of what,
I
how
think
this is, I think the sound
I think the
ordinance
sound ordinance is something we need to do anyway.
or sound regulation.
We need,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then my other concern is, do we control the sound? You know, is this the 24/7 sound, or is this also the backup
Well,
power?
that's
sound,
part,
Let's be 24/7.
You know,
no, it's part, yeah, that's for data centers.
Yeah.
But I think in general,
Well, I want to define this backup, well, let's use backup power, meaning if that's emergency power as opposed to peak shaving.
peak shaving,
Which I think there's no benefit.
that's a lot.
It's just like regular
Emergency
businesses.
power, you can.
Emergency
develop.
power. I'd say all bets are off. It's an emergency.
It's the peak saving.
It's the peak shaving that is just part of the business. So, okay.
Hmm.
So that didn't clear anything up.
No. All right, let me go back and ask,
Clear some up.
a question though. All right, because like, if you're comfortable saying like, we really don't see the benefit of this use in our community, and we would be more comfortable, you know, setting regulations that, you know, functionally make it impossible or so unattractive that no one would actually come here because we're not offering them what they need to be profitable. Like if that's the direction, remember, you don't have to allow these uses. If at the end of the day you're uncomfortable with them and you don't really see a place for them in the community and you don't see a value in return to the community for allowing them, we can not tie ourselves into pretzels and just say we're
But-
proposing to prohibit
Really,
these.
really.
But we have to define what the data center is. And that's where I think the stumbling block is.
Yeah, but I think in
If you
terms of,
should allow normal industry or if a firm like CSC, that type of business wants to move into town, shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
We should be able to allow that.
Yes, and
Because,
so
yeah,
where,
I think
what you do need to define, right, is that the state has defined what's going to be, you know, eligible for these incentives and so forth. So I mean, that's a great place to start. You know, we know that if you say, "Oh, we don't want any of those things," that's a good start. Now, if we can put that to bed, then the remaining question, as you said, Jeff, is what are we comfortable with as an accessory use? And how large are we comfortable with that being?
I think that's what we're really talking about, is accessory use.
So for our town, a data center is only gonna be an accessory use, you know,
Yeah,
quote unquote.
but it could be in a separate,
Yeah.
it could be separate or combined.
Yeah.
An accessory use could be a computer company
Yeah.
that wants to be able to develop or provide a service.
So I think we want to be
Of the
clear is
company.
that we do see the benefit of having a data center.
Yeah,
If in fact it was a silent, clean, peaceful, water absorbent thing. we would
Non-polluting.
see- We would see this great benefit. We would love to have a data
Right.
center. It'd be fantastic. So it's not that we want to stop having a data center. It's that we want to have things that are all these bad things. And so some of them we just need to define what the bad things are we don't want.
well, it's, yeah, how do we define it?
That's correct. So it's not a matter of targeting
Sorry.
data centers to make sure we can't do them. I'd say that's not true.
Think
We
it's
would love to have.
Target the
Size.
hills.
a
Target the
size-
ills.
Size thing.
Size. But what's a CSC like now? I don't know what they're like.
Well,
It's
actually,
connected
I-
all them up.
You can
doesn't use it.
Go Google Maps.
There is a, but you see them or you used
Oh,
to see them
I used to use
advertising.
them.
No, call up the Norwood
I
Center.
don't know
see
what it's like,
No, they don't, EV doesn't use them. They went to
They
another
went-
company.
Did they really?
but I mean,
I don't know
not
who they
just
use.
CSC, but
Yeah.
the company.
But the
else.
Norwood,
That's
you
those
can
type-
look in an area on it, you know.
Yeah, the outsourced type data center.
Well, they put that in the, what really was a light industrial area. It wasn't in the industrial park,
Yeah, it was up by,
but that's all light industry. I would call it light industry.
And again, for size, I want to keep going back. I'd have to reiterate this point. Your zoning regulations for the underlying zonings, for the underlying zoning regulates the size and, you know, the building height and, you know, so that is regulated. And if you're comfortable with any other industrial use filling up that space that you allow, you should also feel comfortable with a data center covering up that same space will allow for a different use. And if you are, at the end of the day, not comfortable with that massing, then that's something that we change for the entire district and not for this use. And I think to Hal's point, you know, you set these high standards for performance. And so if we need to make stronger noise regulations, check, we'll do that. We've already got in here that you have to get approval from the utilities. You've got to be net zero. All these things we're including in this draft, and they're all like if someone was magically able to do all those things, to Hal's point, it would mitigate your concerns. So we just need to like, are we missing any concerns that we have not mitigated for in this draft, or that we need to make stronger?
What draft? What are you talking? You're losing me on this.
We did not
We have-
include the last draft in this agenda packet, Jeff. We
But
just
it has
included,
been included in past agenda packets, yes?
Yes, that is correct.
You're talking about your last draft.
Dated September 1, I believe.
Yes.
You're too quiet.
I don't have that last draft. with-
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me and I haven't looked at it recently, so.
Right.
I thought maybe we were going to start or be talking about the smaller ones first or something, the 1,000
The accessory.
ones. Yeah, knock off those, get some consensus on that. Seems like the easier thing, but even there, I would love to see what they're like and all that sort of thing. Understand more about them. And I don't know how staff wants us to do it. I mean, we could go online. I could spend a few hours looking for things, or it'd be nice to get maybe we all get a package on some of these things we might not familiar with, or they changed over the last few months since I looked at it.
So again, in terms of what they look like, these smaller ones look like shipping containers,
Right.
basically. So if you, and I don't know of any local examples, Kevin, maybe you do, but some
Not
of the,
locally.
yeah.
Yeah.
But basically the pictures I've seen, the ones that are co-located with, say, a solar energy facility, they look like literally shipping containers. So they're these metallic buildings, and then they're surrounded by fencing. And some communities are, requiring that you have vegetated buffer around them. It depends on the zoning district where they're located. But in terms of what they look like, they look like shipping containers. And
Where could you go see one? And
I
hear
don't
one?
know. Locally, I don't know.
Oh, they're at midnight or something.
When you say that, are you mean like 300 to 400 square feet? Like a tractor trailer, one of these
40 foot.
That's right.
40 foot by 8 by 8?
Like 50 foot.
Approximately.
Or is it a
So
different?
like what you would see, like literally shipping container, like what you would see unloading at a port.
All right, yeah, I know, yeah.
Yeah.
I know. So you're looking at 350 or 400 square feet. something
What
like
kind of
that.
power?
Oh, so I don't know what type of power, but so I'll just say, there's a couple places you can look at them. Number one, they're sitting on the Polish border, which borders Ukraine, and there's a ton of them there if you'd like to go there. I'm just saying, it's a little classified for the moment, but in any of the big hyperscale data centers, essentially what they do, the architecture is they build a big data center and then they bring in these shipping containers on the side and they plug it into a big outdoor power outlet. Let's say it's like almost like a little plug-in, and within a day you're up and operating. So it's a very highly mobile, highly scalable type of an approach, right? I haven't seen them stand alone. I don't love the theory that they should stand alone, because if they're standing alone, what are they actually doing out there? To me, it's probably a single use, which is crypto, which is okay, in my opinion, as a service, by the way. But it's just, then it comes down to noise and cooling units and power generators and all that type of stuff, right? Because if they can put them near a residential zone, you're going to have the same problems more than anything else. So I've been listening, to it. I want to see what everyone else said here. And, Jeff, I thought the questions you asked were very great because they provoke some thoughts, right? And as I say, think it through, and where I work a lot in Data Center Alley, as far as you can see, there's just data centers. There's no houses around it. There's no residential around it. Or if I go down to I've been to 2 hyperscales. One is in a massive industrial park. Nothing that Groton has is anything like that. And the other is on 1,000 acres, right? So sometimes when I think about all what we're going through right now, and yes, if we can call the shot, essentially we're in a billiards game and we can call the shot that says net zero, green, noise that essentially is not there, removed very far from residential districts, then we should do that, right? Because it comes back down to your, Jeff, the same thought that you had. If we agree with you, that says, okay, if you can allow some other industrial plant in the same space, then you shouldn't really preclude data centers as long as it fits in within your town, right? So to me, we either do one or two things. We do that and we put all those conditions around, which are really stringent conditions, and someone could say, who's going to move into a data center into Groton? And the answer is, unless it's on our conditions in my community, then you're not, Or we say, and I know because I make my money on this, it's only accessory data centers in Groton. With our conservation plan, with the unique aspects that we've had these residential zones grow up next to our industrial zones, and the state passes an emergency statute. Well, I'm not sure Groton fits that criteria, that demographic, all those type of things. And the answer is either we define it very clearly and very stringent in what we want to do, or we say accessory data unit centers are what we want in Groton. That's my opinion.
Why aren't there accessory data centers now?
Pfizer, I'm sure, has a data center in it. And I assure you that even though EB, goes, I presume, to AWS or Azure, they have a data center still within their facility. Even though they outsource. Pardon?
May not be facility.
Right, but that
Yeah,
would only
it
be 2. That's not like, is it really a compelling thing to put in this town?
Well,
Because that's a big businesses doing it.
That's what your definition is.
My point is, sorry, Just go back to data center. Is it a compelling
Yeah.
thing for Groton to have data centers? And you know what? Where I work and where I see these big data centers, the answer is no, there isn't. I don't see anything that's compelling.
I think you're right, Steve. There, a lot of businesses really have a data center.
Oh, yeah,
Their own.
houses.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Might be a
right.
closet size.
That's right.
Probably the town
Yeah.
has. How does the town get all their IT stuff?
Yeah, where the servers.
Yeah,
Is it town hall?
Yeah.
Is there a storage container out there?
No, it's just in a room.
you know,
Just
but you just put them in a room, but they're still a data center.
Right, yeah. And the room has its own air conditioning,
Yeah,
but it looks like a Mitsubishi.
it doesn't require any special stuff because you aren't using a lot of power.
Not
Well,
what we're talking about here, right?
Not what we're talking about here, but that does require cooling units and fire suppression, all that type of stuff, right?
no, but it's not that large.
No,
I think for me, it's like, when you look at all this stuff and I look at it on paper and I think, okay, all right. But then when I actually look at the map and where do you drop this down? That's,
Yep.
you know, I start to like run into one problem after another.
Right.
But we gotta define what's acceptable,
Yeah.
and then you find out. can you
No,
put
I
it there?
was-
You may not be able.
Yeah, I mean, when I was looking, I was driving, I took a drive around the IG yesterday and when I was up on Industrial Drive, I've been up there a long time and I couldn't believe just like how close those houses are to
Yep.
the Amtrak building, and even Ivy Court that was built, I don't know, I mean, that was 10 or 12 years ago, probably. Shipment put that in, and there's still lots on the other side that are ready for development some point. I mean, it's like the residential is growing. I would like to encourage the smaller things, I think.
So I
Yeah.
am hearing
Oh.
general consensus with maybe the exception of Hal, that most folks would be comfortable prohibiting data centers as a primary use, only allowing them as an accessory use, coming up with standards for them still. But maybe there needs to be some limit to where they're regulated at all. Obviously, if they're in an existing building or in someone's closet, that should not trigger zoning regulations. But if they're large enough to be, shipping container size or outside, that those should be regulated, that existing businesses should be allowed to have them. It sounded like, based on your comments, most people were generally comfortable with the 20% of the square footage of the existing business, with an absolute cap placed on top of that, if you're talking about a very large business, is what I'm saying, sounding generally comfortable to people.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations to all y'all.
It's not an easy one, that's for sure.
No.
Right.
Because again, I don't want us to tie ourselves in knots trying to come up with regulations for something that you don't really want at the end of the day, when it's in your power to just say no.
I mean, it's kind of, I feel like this is New England and we're already filled to the gills at a lot of levels, and, maybe it just, I mean, I don't know. It's tough.
well, maybe it's as simple as we don't have the place to put it.
Don't have, yeah, that's the problem.
We just don't have, we have very, very limited place to put it, and those places that we have, it doesn't fit.
And there was someone, I don't know who, was it Evan or Steve? Did someone sent something about the one they were looking at in Basra? So I thought, if you've got 1,000 acres, then maybe that, but we don't have 1,000 acres.
But then the chickens won't be able to lay any eggs. The farmers will probably.
No, even our IG is
We
in
don't
the
have-
floodplain, and you've got the airport. So anything you put in there, you're elevating it and you're being squeezed from the bottom and you're being squeezed from the top because of the airport.
Yeah, we really don't have the
That's
land.
true.
We really don't have the space.
You can't have trees at Bluff Point because of the airport.
Mm.
It's not that tall.
So accessory only will probably be in more zones than just the industrial ones.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, that's true.
No, but we're worried, I think, about the industrial for a large scale.
Right, okay. Yep.
And I don't, yeah,
Well, that'll be interesting to see.
small ones, I
Right.
don't think that's a
Right,
problem.
but it's the commercial zones and maybe even some of the mixed zones I don't
Think-
know, but it'd be more just industrial.
A small data center, you could put anywhere, and I would think it would have almost no
And
impact.
that 20% limitation is going to keep them very modest and so.
Yeah. I don't know whether you put a limit on power usage or anything as a way to control that.
I do want to make sure we take on the agenda having a sound regulation. having
Oh,
noise.
yeah,
Well, that's a whole separate.
Is a whole separate issue that I don't want to push too far down the road, because this has been a voyage of discovery that it's a real big deal.
Right.
I have enough problems with some of the refrigerator truck showing up.
Groton Town, biggest business. Excluding EV and Pfizer. What's our expected?
You mean like facility size? I mean,
Yeah.
it's probably
Someday.
sure, sub-base.
Sub-base.
But then there's,
This is the third.
Harwood,
Okay.
I've forgotten what there's two buildings.
Yeah. Harwood and what about like Walmart?
Yeah, Lord, I'm sure, but I think the industrial down on where Harwood used to be is probably larger.
Okay.
If you look at our 10 biggest taxpayers, they usually put that out. paper.
Yeah.
It's usually CL&P is on there, something like that, but
But then you're
I think
talking-
I think Arwood is like, in that 4 or 5 usually.
Yeah, because it would be interesting to see what they have.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, does the we don't have any, never mind, I won't even ask. Sub-base, they must have something.
Nice
They
day.
do. Sure they do.
Thank you, Al.
They got
Need to know,
Well, they can't have cannabis. They need something, so.
That's right.
And as for cryptocurrency, given the decision not to allow data centers as a primary use, I think the issue of cryptocurrency just kind of goes away. I would recommend, given the direction that we're going, that we just don't address it at all.
Great.
Yeah.
So I know it is 7:29. So we can, obviously the chair can choose to shut down whenever you'd like, but I did, if you have 5 minutes, want to talk one thing about, or at least introduce a concept for short-term rentals. In your packets, you should have had an email from Hal, who was pondering, last time we got together, we all kind of came to the consensus that, if they're going to be short-term rentals in any residential district, they have to be owner-occupied. Hal is hoping to readdress that and pitch some ideas for specific areas, maybe an overlay zone within residential districts where some non-owner occupied short-term rentals might be appropriate. So I want to make sure that we talk about that next time, but Hal, is there anything you wanted to say about that before we close this evening?
And actually we kind of skipped over it when we got to where we are now, because early on, we had been talking about overlay areas and things like that, and then kind of dropped it. But I look at areas like, what we're trying to prevent is neighborhoods being constructed. Well, if I'm looking at River Road, individual lots on River Road, there's no neighborhood there. Each one, for the most part, they're private. They're incredibly private. So if in fact the battle is, oh no, we feel the neighborhood thing, I don't see that in some places where I would almost encourage having some, because there's a core business that we would just be eliminating, completely eliminating, if we just say owner occupied, period.
Except a bed and breakfast are owner occupied. I think that's worked well.
That part is, but
A public testimony.
except that there's a huge business out there of people. I just did one in Lawrence. I rented a house. It was a purpose-built house. It's in a cul-de-sac of purpose-built houses. The owner was in one of those. I don't know which, but not the property. He wasn't in the house. And he didn't live there. Nobody lived there. And it was exactly appropriate.
Well, I think we ought to hear from the public
Well,
that's
what
out
about the
there.
neighbors?
And they may
What was
throw-
supposed to
Was
get
it
to
in
know?
a large lots?
There were medium-sized lots filled with the exact same kind of thing. Most but not all the houses were short-term rental, except for a couple which were people who use them as vacation homes.
So it wasn't a real, true residential area.
Did not feel like a residential area normally, but if it was, some places were adjacent to a commercial area. So that's why I like to take it. It acts as a buffer to a commercial area.
Well,
I
it's
could be next to a bar or I could be next to a short.
kind of taking, to me, I look at that and I think that you're sort of just allowing mini hotels into residential areas.
I kind of am.
Existing,
And I would also suggest that,
existing residential.
yeah, existing,
Yep.
but
That's-
also that the real estate market is going to demand that that those houses then become their highest value, which would be the short-term rental. And so that if you put a circle around River Road, every house on River Road, the real estate market is gonna demand that they become short-term rental.
But I wouldn't, you say whole of River Road, I wouldn't say the whole of anything. I'd say, where would we like them?
Yeah, well, that's what that could be, but I think
And most of the
that's,
time is where they already are.
Anyway,
So-
take a look at your,
Yes, next
Okay, I'll have
time, so
that.
that is something to consider between now and then. If you want to reopen that discussion.
I had an interesting conversation with somebody last night that had a place on the Cape that he eventually turned into a short-term rental place. And he said he actually lost money on it. He said he had to have flood insurance. It was about 14,000 a year. But that plus his mortgage and taxes and everything were more than he took in for income.
Well, then he
Which
should
I
be
thought
doing
was,
it.
well, he sold the place because of that, which I thought was quite interesting.
it's not like you can run anything. I mean, a hotel, that's the business that a hotel is in, right?
Absolutely.
And they don't all make money.
No, but I was
I
surprised,
mean, you've got to fill those rooms, right? I mean, and Mystic and Groton.
but it may be people are having what they think is big income, but may not be successful financially.
Because having owner occupied is a no-brainer, sure.
No,
But how about the guy, when we know of two people that actually have spoken, where they bought the house next door.
right,
yeah,
There's no concern that it's going to be too noisy. They live next door.
yeah, but it's not just noise, it disrupts a neighborhood. as a
I understand, but this is somebody who's already living in the neighborhood.
Yeah, but do we really want that in Mystic? Do we want the community to really lose it and just say it's only there for tourists?
No, I don't.
That's the
I'm saying define where it is, not the town, some local places. It might just be, 80 feet from where commercial is.
Yeah, but you picked on my backyard.
And where your backyard is, that would be a good place to have it. You'll be a bunch of places.
No, but you said on the riverside of Noank
Yeah.
Road.
That south side of West Mystic Avenue, right? That's not a bad spot to have it, right?
that's right. huh?
Not the north side.
Yeah, but he lives up the street, so he doesn't see it. I do.
Very good.
Every place north of his house.
Swimming upstream.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff. That was a good way to finish too, because it kind of stimulates us going into the next meeting.
Yep, yep.
It gives a
We're gonna get this
thought.
done. We're gonna get this done, folks. We're gonna do it.
Okay.
Good.
Jeff,
So I guess we're on overtime now.
are you adjourned or?
Let's move for adjournment.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
All right.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Jeff.
God bless.